Bryza is former U.S. ambassador to Azerbaijan, and he joins us now from here in Istanbul. Hi, Matthew. Good to see you. You know what? I'm going to ask you to play correspondent for just a minute, and if you can give us a better sense of where militarily this conflict really stands now. We've been hearing from Azerbaijan that more villages, have been retaken, yet it still feels like this is far from over.
Yeah, thank you for having me with you, Andre, as always. So I think Azerbaijan is approaching a sort of a strategic victory on the battlefield in terms of regaining the city of Shusha, which is on the commanding heights above the capital, Hankendi or Stepanakert, and the possession of which would allow Azerbaijan to block the lifeline, the road from Armenia to Hankendi, which is called the Lachin corridor because it passes through the territory, occupied territory of Azerbaijan called Lachin district. So the fighting today is in different areas, right? So Azerbaijan is right on the outskirts of Shusha. That will really change the war when Azerbaijan takes that. And now the battles where you said in Khojavend, in Gubadli, in Agdere, those are places that have been under in the site of intense conflict for some time, but more or less have been controlled by Azerbaijan, and now Armenia has launched some counterattacks. But I think those counterattacks are going to run out of steam, and really the whole question now is going to be Shusha.
Okay. Let me put this to you, because, for so many years, Armenians and Azerbaijanis really lived side by side in these areas. We saw mixed marriages, mixed families even. But after what's happened, if there is a resolution somewhere in the near future, will they be able to return to that kind of coexistence?
Yeah, that's the huge question. That has been the goal, as articulated by President Aliyev throughout this conflict. He has said in every interview I've heard him give that the goal is to, enable Azerbaijanis to return to their former homes from which they were evicted and ethnically cleansed, but let the ethnic Armenians remain inside Nagorno-Karabakh in their homes, and let's rebuild society together. Now that may sound like an extremely positive objective, maybe even naive, but I do think that's possible. Now, as far as Armenians are concerned who lived in the 7 territories that surround Nagorno-Karabakh and have been occupied by Armenia, I think that President Ali has been clear that all those people have to leave because, there aren't that many in those territories. But those were never disputed territories. Those were always over 90% ethnically Azerbaijani. It's Nagorno-Karabakh itself that was so mixed, just as you said, Andrea. And you know what? There was no real conflict between Armenians and Azerbaijanis, until 1988, when a group of political extremists, ethnic Armenian ones in Nagorno-Karabakh, said we should secede from the Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic. This was an internal Soviet issue, and that just ended up catalyzing and expanding into a war once the Soviet Union collapsed.
Right. It feels like at this point it's really not about reaching a ceasefire anymore. It's just about somehow ending the conflict by just finding a full resolution. So, will this military confrontation just have to continue until someone technically wins on the battlefield?
Well, you're the first person who's asked that question to me, and I think that's exactly right. That's the one people should be focusing on. Azerbaijan, from its perspective, it is enforcing 4 United Nations Security Council resolutions, so international law, saying that Nagorno-Karabakh and the 7 surrounding territories are Azerbaijani. And the international community did nothing to enforce them. When I was the mediator, we were far along on developing a framework agreement that, by the way, that both the Armenian leader and Azerbaijani leader agreed to in January of 2009, but they never finalized. So Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia, over the course of the last year, has said, I reject that previous formula. I reject that formula of lands for peace. I instead want a new formula of new wars for new lands. And so that's what led to this conflict. And so I think Azerbaijan has decided we're going to bring this to a military conclusion, but then go back to the political phase, because we should all keep in mind every war that has ever ended has ended with political negotiations. And so Azerbaijan is very strongly positioned now for those political negotiations. And once it regains that town I mentioned in the beginning, Shusha, which is showing right now on screen, it will be in a commanding position to force a political resolution now of this conflict.
Okay, Matthew Bryza, great to have you as always. Thanks so much for taking the time. We appreciate it very much.